Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of IBD Heal, a podcast brought to you by High Carb Health. I'm your host, Shakul, and today we are joined by Linda Stelluti. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm very excited to have Linda on board. I'll just give you a quick rundown about Linda. So, Linda is a clinical hypnotherapist and wellness coach specializing in IBS and digestive disorders using gut directed hypnotherapy. Her evidence-based treatment is founded on almost 40 years of clinical research that blends gut-directed hypnotherapy sessions, affirmation tracks, guided imagery, and wellness strategies that are now available through her signature online gut-directed hypnotherapy program, group classes, as well as virtual one-on-one private sessions. By prioritizing the restoration of the gut-brain connection and regulating the nervous system, she takes a holistic approach to promote long-term gut health and balance in the body. So I'm super excited for this because I've been looking into gut-directed hypnotherapy, but I haven't dived deep enough to really understand it very well. But I know there's some huge benefits, and especially for IBS. So I'd also be interested,
Yes,
Linda,
we can
in
cover
learning about
both
how we can
IBD,
relate that
IBS.
to IBD as well. So, yeah, if we just get
Yes.
started on the topic of gut-directed hypnotherapy and get your thoughts on, the benefits of using that approach to improve your health.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely dive in. So, gut-directed hypnotherapy is a form of hypnosis that directly addresses the miscommunication that's happening between the brain and the gut. We're going to
Mm,
go deeper into what that gut-brain axis is and why it's so important. But using the power of the subconscious mind and really working at at like relaxing the body, relaxing the mind, entering those deeper states so that we can calm the nervous system, so that we can start to bring things back into balance. But not only that, we're giving guided imagery, direct suggestion, and it's an evidence-based method that has almost 40 years of clinical research behind it, mostly for IBS. There's a few studies that have been done for IBD, and it really is showing promising results for that as well. But for IBS, it's been shown to be an effective treatment for IBS. And really, what I've seen in my practice is immense shifts and transformations in helping to reduce symptoms like bloating, abdominal pain, cramping, diarrhea, constipation,
mm,
and help people get their life back on track because it can take so much mental time, energy, like when we're suffering from a chronic digestive disorder, from the
mm,
time that we wake up, right? This can be running in the back of our mind, like, how are we going to feel today? What can we do? Do we have to, can we even go out tonight? It's like you're always
mm,
basing it your whole life around that. And so getting it back into control can just
mm.
really, really improve people's quality of life over time.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about this for a long time. And just to give you a bit of a background around, we've been doing this for 8 years, working with people with really severe digestive problems. And one of
Yeah.
the main things we noticed was that, a couple, people could have very similar conditions, but one person may take a lot longer to recover than another person. And what we realized over time is that the main link or the main difference is the way people focus their mental energy onto the healing process. So it's something that we've been really pushing for a long time, and that's why I'm really excited to have you on to kind of explain some of
Mm.
the science behind how that works as well. So yeah, let's talk about this gut brain axis that you've mentioned and what happens. How does it get that disconnect?
Yeah, so what can happen between, well, first of all, what your gut-brain axis is.
Hmm.
It's made up of your brain, your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that's running from your brain down into your gut.
Hmm.
And the vagus nerve is so important here because we like to look at it like a highway of communication between your brain and your gut. And your gut is also considered to be a second brain. It's
Mm-hmm.
encased in over 100 million neurons, and it can function somewhat independently from the brain too. And so there's signals being sent from the gut into the brain, from the brain into the gut. And that's why, like, they're so interconnected because your gut's impacting your mental health, your mind, the way you're thinking, also impacting your gut, your stress. And when we're helping one, it's helping the other. They're kind of like, there's a synergy that's happening between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And your vagus nerve, what can cause these miscommunications? that are happening between the vagus nerve, between the two, that can lead to painful symptoms, can lead to digestive issues, is there's a couple different things. There's stress, of course, is a really, really huge one. Trauma can also affect the nervous system and cause inflammation in the body. There's lack of good sleep, not having a proper nutrition, not exercising well or enough. All of these things can impact your nervous system function. And why it's so important to find balance in all these areas is because that's where the information
Mm.
to maintain for your motility, your acid secretion, for your
Mm.
microbiome, like it's all interconnected. And the stress aspect, when we're stressed, our body, our nervous system has two big
Mm.
response patterns that I'll go into. There's the fight or flight, which is when you're stressed, and then
Mhm.
we have the rest and digest mode of your
Mhm.
nervous system. So if you're stressed, if you're anxious, it could be work, it could be relationship stuff, just like living in this modern society, there's so many things happening and we can tend to really live on that side of fight or flight. Then
Mm.
it can start to dysregulate important functions in the body. It can cause abdominal pain, cramping. When you're in that state, your digestion gets put last on the priority list.
Mm.
Not like
Mm.
last, but it's like it's not a priority for your body. It's in
Mm.
survival mode. It's
Mhm.
it's preparing to either fight or flight. That's what the response pattern was wired in evolutionarily to keep us safe. But now
Mhm.
we have different things that are putting us in this state that aren't
Mm.
necessarily imminent danger, but it does impact things, the digestion, your skin, um, all different parts of your body. So getting the stress in control and learning, I think a really big part of it is learning to become attuned of when are we in that state and how do we get out of it? Like, what are things that we can do to really put ourselves into the opposite state of that, which is the parasympathetic nervous system response, the
Mm.
rest and digest mode, which is when your body is healing, your body is repairing, it's when your
Mm.
body is relaxed and your digestion is improved when we're in this rest and digest state. So being able to recognize, this is something I really like to help my clients with, is to
Mm.
even know what response are we in?
Mhm.
How are we overriding our body and our body's signals? Because
Mhm.
we can push them too far. And how do we find balance so that we're not overloading our system? We're not overwhelming it. We're helping to really take care of our body and get it in a place where it is in rest and digest mode so that function in the body can be improved.
Mm. I'm really fascinated to hear you talk about all those five different lifestyle factors because it's exactly the same thing that the first time I have a chat to any of my clients, I said there's five main things that you have to do if you want to heal properly. Deal with your diet and nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise, and mental health. And just to hear you
Yes,
say almost exactly the same thing,
it's the
it
same.
just seems to be a very common theme that people are realizing that if they don't deal with those
Yeah.
things, it's going to be very hard to be healthy. And it's fascinating that you talk about that. Yeah, so let's dive into some of the information around how those things that you just mentioned affect the gut, and especially with IBS and IBD.
Yes. So if we're in this fight or flight mode, or for
Mm.
example, if we're not taking care of these pillars of health,
Hmm.
then our body is not in its optimal state of function, right?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
the stress or these other sides, they can cause inflammation
Mm.
in the body. The inflammation is creating problems in the body, but not only that, it can cause hypersensitivity in your gut, making your gut more sensitive. And
Mm.
they've shown, for example, people with IBS, they tend to have more sensitive guts than the average person. And so something that might just feel like a little tiny thing to one person, with someone who has a more sensitive gut, they feel that pain much, much more. And it impacts us so much more
Mm.
when our gut is sensitive.
Mm.
And so those are some of the ways, right? It can lead to flare-ups. It can lead
Hmm.
to painful symptoms, alterations in our motility.
Hmm.
And and that's where we want to pinpoint because stress, they've shown in IBD, for some people can trigger flare-ups.
Oh yeah.
Like there's
Oh
a
yeah.
correlate, there
I've
can be
seen
a
it.
correlation there.
Hmm.
The clients I've worked with that have colitis, I have noticed a very common pattern of they went through some challenging or stressful or even traumatic times in their life, or a big life change happened and they weren't
Mm,
quite fully able to process what happened. Like it's somewhat on maybe an unconscious, it's still maybe affecting
mm,
them.
mm.
And their symptoms started. It's not for everyone, but I have noticed that pattern. Have you noticed this with the people that you work with as well?
Yeah, so what I find is that people who have gut issues are much more emotional and they feel their emotions in their gut. And so
Yes.
it's like, okay, when the body wants to heal, it sends the healing effort into the gut, and the body wants to try and cleanse and, do whatever it wants to do through the gut for these people. So definitely people who get their symptoms in the gut are much more opinion. There's a gut feeling, we know that
The gut
there's
feeling.
things
Yes.
in the gut that affect us. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And so yeah, I find that, there's three main things that can either cause symptoms or recur. One is obviously slipping up on not eating a healthy enough diet. The second is not getting enough rest or sleep. And the third is a stressful event. Uh,
Yeah.
hmm,
Definitely. This reminds me of a client I was working with recently where he really became aware every time he was going into stress or this overthinking mode where he would start to kind of escalate in his negative thoughts, he would have a direct feeling in his gut of where the pain was.
wow.
Like he could feel that stress starting, like it would bring up the pain, and he could tell that
Mm,
it was somewhat stored in that part of his body. And
mm,
so it's so interesting how the body is communicating with us. And I do believe that our body is often trying to tell us something. We just don't always know how to interpret those signals. And like what you said about the gut being an information network, some people, they really process information and emotions in the gut.
mm,
And this can be challenging when it gets overwhelming, or like we feel stress and anxiety like some people feel like butterflies in their
mm,
stomach,
mm,
or fear can be like this sinking pit in our stomach as well. So there's
mm.
different ways of experiencing it in the gut, and being able to recognize that emotions, they can get stored in the body,
Definitely.
and if they're not resolved and processed, and it's like we're carrying a weight around with us constantly. It can feel like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talked about some of the research that's been done with gut-directed hypnotherapy and IBS. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the benefits that they've found by using this approach?
Yes. So some of the benefits that they found with gut-directed hypnotherapy is that it's been shown to help reduce pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's been shown to help reduce hypersensitivity in the gut. It helps to improve digestion. It helps to calm and regulate the nervous system. It helps to relieve symptoms like cramping, motility issues, like alterations in motility. So it really helps with symptom relief. And on top of that, the studies have been shown that people that did the gut-directed hypnotherapy versus people who only did the dietary changes, that they noticed an improvement in their like feeling less anxious and depressed, like their feeling
Mm,
of their quality of life improved as well. So that was some of
mm.
the research was showing that too.
Excellent. That's really cool. And in terms of the benefits, do we find that majority of people are getting benefits when they do it, or is it just different? Is it types of people that benefit more than others?
Yes. So I see a very high success rate. It's not everyone though. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would say it's like 8 to 9 out of 10 people
Mm-hmm.
will experience a significant reduction when I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with them.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody will respond, just like there's no one thing that works for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But in the people that do respond, I feel it's the people that one are committed. Like between, like when I work with someone, we do one session a week for 8 weeks typically.
Mm,
And in between, there's homework, there's action steps, there's
mm,
recordings that they listen to between because we're really wanting to hardwire these changes. And
mm,
with the subconscious mind, repetition is key to making the long lasting changes.
mm,
So the people that are really committed, the people they show up on time, they're there, they're willing to do it. They've shown people who tend to, with IBS specifically, who tend to be more on the highly anxious side of being,
mm,
you're more susceptible to being in a state. You're if you're very anxious, you're already in a slightly altered state of trance, which is
mm,
interesting. We don't fully think of it that way, but
mm.
so they tend to actually be uh, in not more suggestible, but it's easier for them to get into that state, is what I've
Right, right.
observed.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting. So, yeah, I'm fully on board. I think using gut-directed hypnotherapy as a tool in your overall gut healing toolbox is something that I think is really, really important. And if you can get to that subconscious and as you said, get to that parasympathetic state where, the healing happens much easier, you're gonna definitely notice benefits. And it's gonna make the other things that you're doing as well, hopefully you're also looking at your diet and other lifestyle factors, much more
Yeah.
effective as well.
Yeah. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the
Mm,
whole thing, but it's a very
mm,
helpful piece of the puzzle.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing we were going to talk about today is, I mean, a lot of the things, as you mentioned to me before we started, is everything is going to be a little bit more interconnected anyway. But can you
Mhm.
delve a bit deeper into the vagus nerve and how it works and operates?
So the vagus nerve, yeah, the vagus nerve. And one other thing I definitely want to
Oh
touch on
yeah,
too is
yeah, absolutely.
demystifies the demystifying hypnosis.
Oh yes.
Because there's a lot of unknown, like a lot of people get this idea around hypnosis as being
Hmm.
like, maybe have you ever seen stage hypnosis? Yeah, so there's
Yes,
like
yes, I
stage
have. Yeah.
hypnosis, movies, TV shows where it looks like
Hmm.
this kind of mind control. People, they close their eyes, they don't remember anything. And the real use of hypnotherapy is not like that at all. We're using, it's very sensationalized in movies
Hmm.
and things like this, but we're using it therapeutically. We're
Hmm.
using the states of trance, which is normal phenomena that everybody experiences. We call it trance, hypnosis, or alterations in your brain activity. It's a normal, natural phenomena. So, times that you're in a state of trance, a few examples would be when you're driving on the highway, many people go into something called highway hypnosis, which is where you're just like totally absorbed and you don't remember getting from point A to B. You're like an hour later, you don't remember your drive, and it can feel a little creepy,
Hmm.
a little scary sometimes. You're like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. But in those moments, your subconscious mind was driving the car.
Hmm.
And that's one example. When we're watching TV, movies, things like this, and we get really absorbed into the moment, and we're not fully aware of the passing of time, or maybe if you're reading a book or you're doing something
Hmm.
like you're mentioning, actually, you're biking. Do you get moments where you're just so in the zone and it's a yeah, like
Yeah,
how would you
definitely.
describe when you get into that moment?
Oh, it's like I mean, yeah, absolutely. You're like in a zone, you're kind of floating. It's yeah,
Yes,
you're not yeah, things are happening you're aware of everything, but you're not like, like super yeah, it's just like everything's happening because it's just something that you're so used to doing.
exactly.
Mm,
So it's like a flow state.
mm,
So we can talk about hypnosis in a couple different ways. Some people describe it as a state of inner absorption,
mm,
as a state of your mind and body being very relaxed, as a flow state. Some people describe it as being almost in this like dreamy, like when you're daydreaming, it's a little bit of this daydreamy type of feeling, floaty,
mm,
you feel light or you feel heavy. Everyone experiences it a little bit different, but
mm,
it's very relaxing. It's a super pleasant experience. And by the end, you just feel
mm,
so light and so deeply relaxed. And so that's a little bit to give the idea of it's a natural phenomena. So it might not feel super foreign from you and mystical and magical. And some other people believe that, for example, they need to be in this very, very deep state of trance to get the benefits, or they're going to be unconscious or asleep.
Hmm.
And some people do go into this very deeply relaxed state where they almost feel like they're asleep, but part
Mm.
of them is still conscious. But some people is just a very light state of trance, and you can still benefit from it even if you're not in that very, very deep state. So even
Hmm.
if you can daydream, just a light state of trance, you can experience the benefits of hypnotherapy. And so that's a common, I mean, have you heard any common, like any misconceptions about hypnosis that you were even wondering about?
Uh, I have, however, my wife is a qualified hypnotherapist, so I'm well
Yeah.
aware of. So yeah, but I know that people can be scared of it because they think, oh, are they going to
Yes.
control my mind if I go into this state? Are they going to, whatever? But that's not what
Mhm.
happens. You're conscious the whole time.
Yes. You're
Yeah.
conscious the whole time. If you wanted to get up, you could get up
Hmm.
and leave.
Hmm.
You can accept or reject suggestions if you want to.
Yeah.
You are in control. You're just in that very relaxed state that you probably have no desire at all to move from where you are because you're just so pleasantly relaxed.
Yeah.
I remember before I ever got hypnotized, I
Mm.
was actually really, one thing I was very afraid of is that I was going to say things against my will, like that I was going to
Mm.
tell the therapist things that like I maybe didn't want to share and I wouldn't have any control over it, or I'd be
Mm.
embarrassed if I share, like I had those kind of insecurities. And
Mm.
going into it, then I finally, after my first session, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm in complete control over what I
Mm.
say and what I don't say.
Mm. Absolutely. It's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. And yeah, you do really get relaxed and calm in that state. It's lovely. Yeah, recommend it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely recommend it.
yeah, so going back to the vagus nerve, let's talk more about how that functions and how we can make it operate better for us.
Yeah. So the vagus nerve, I mean, I do a guided, specifically on how to make it function better. I do have a really amazing guided imagery that I do with the brain and the
Hmm.
gut that I
Hmm.
like to take people through where they can really get an idea of what it's like when they're stressed to have these communications between their brain and their gut. And I go through this really amazing process where they're able to imagine those signals soothing and relaxing and calming because it's this pathway where the information is being sent from the brain to the gut. If we want to improve the vagus nerve, we want to improve our gut and our brain as well.
Mm.
What we're eating is going to affect our gut microbiome,
Hmm.
right? If we're having like toxins and chemicals, that affects the state of our nervous system.
Mm.
How we're thinking affects how we feel, which is affecting the nervous system. So being able to really focus, be able to gain awareness around how we're thinking and where we're feeding our mental energy. Because where we feed it, if it's in the way that thoughts work, is that if we have one thought that carries a certain emotional frequency that like feels unpleasant, for like we'll pick a negative thought,
Mm.
um, that I'm never going to get better, for example,
Mm. Mm.
and we think that thought, and it will plug us into other thoughts that feel of the same emotion. They're more
Mm.
readily available when we're in that state of mind to start to
Mm.
think many other thoughts that can feel in that same challenging emotion. And so we want to be really aware of what we're thinking and how we're thinking so that we can maybe begin to shift it to something that's more empowering. So, for example,
Mm.
a thought like, I'm never going to get better, we could shift it into something, you know what, each and every day I'm doing my best to improve my health.
Mm.
And then things that are connected with that is more the emotion of hope.
Mm.
If we're focusing our energy here, it grows and that can put us into stress response. This can put us into
Mm.
hopelessness, into overwhelm, into
Mm.
frustration with our current state of being.
Mm.
And it's not that it's going to take away like the um, chronic illness that you're dealing with, but it's going to make your internal experience of what you're going through much more easy. And if your nervous system is also, your body's in a better state, your mind's in a better state, you're just going to feel better
Mm.
overall. And that has a
Mhm.
positive impact on our lives. So
Mm.
that's one area. One thing that a lot of people don't talk about in terms of nervous system health is pleasure and
Mhm.
joy and enjoying our life. If we're
Mm.
not doing things that are pleasurable, that are enjoyable,
Mm.
that we like, like making, and I know this kind of sounds like a lot of things, but doing things we enjoy every day, this will help us feel better. This
Yeah.
helps us gain more of our life force energy, of our own innate energy and human connection. That's also something a lot of people don't talk about, but human connection, being in isolation, not
Mm.
having support can be very challenging we regulate our nervous system also through other people, through feeling safe, through
Mm.
feeling loved, through feeling things like we can belong. This helps to calm our nervous system. Physical touch, hugging, cuddling, things like this helps to calm our nervous system. So those are just some like, yeah, things we don't always think about, but that also impact our health.
Yeah, super important. Yeah, and there's research around, like physical interactions and as you said, cuddles with loved ones and family
Yeah,
members or friends or kids. It definitely makes, again, just calms everything down, doesn't it? Just lets you
it
relax a bit
does.
more and feels good.
Releases oxytocin, makes us
Mm.
feel good and warm inside.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And the last thing we were going to talk about before we go into some other topics was
Yes.
stress and the mind-body connection. We've already kind of touched on a couple of things, but
We've kind of touched on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
how does it, what other things obviously affects your gut? If you're stressed, and that can cause, you go into that fight or flight mode, and then your gut's not functioning the way you kind of want it to. What else can it
Yeah.
affect?
Well, it affects your microbiome. They've
Mm-hmm.
shown people that are more anxious and depressed have more bad bacteria in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it can have effects like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stress, it really starts to dysregulate important function in the body, our
Mm.
sleep, our hormones. It touches on so many things. A lot of illnesses can be triggered by stress
Mm.
too. And I think we don't fully understand the impact, like how like we hear the word stress and we're like, oh yeah, just stress. But no, like
Mm.
stress really, really, really plays a
Mm.
huge role in our health, an
Mm.
immensely important role in our health.
Mm.
And
Now,
and
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, you
so that's
carry
a
on.
way it can, yeah.
Is all stress bad though? Is there certain levels of stress that can be beneficial for us?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think so. I think low levels of stress, and it's normal. Like
Hmm.
it's natural to be stressed sometimes. It's a
Hmm.
response in our body for a reason. Like I mentioned, it keeps us safe.
Hmm.
It can keep us alert. If there's danger, we can run away way faster. We don't want to be like a Zen master meditating if we're being chased by a guy with a knife, Like we need to be able to have a rush of adrenaline to get away, or maybe um, if you have a time crunch and you really need to get
Hmm.
something done fast, stress can help you do that a little bit faster, but
Hmm.
we just don't want to
Hmm.
stay there. We don't want
Right.
to be stuck in the identity of stress as a normal
Hmm.
default state of being. And a lot of people, it can be their default state, how they feel every single day to the point where they don't even know what it's like to not feel that way. And I've worked with people, they didn't even know what it felt to be so deeply relaxed until we worked together. And I was like,
Right.
like, this is a possibility, but we get limited by our experience of our internal experience of what like stress and happiness and how we feel on a day-to-day basis. It's only from our internal experience. So we don't know that it can get so much better. Like we can feel 100 times better when we really work on our inner world and our subjective experience and with the subconscious mind to help
Hmm.
heal and shift limiting beliefs and heal the past, heal from past experiences. I used to be really anxious. I had really bad social anxiety. I had depression. I had anxiety. I burnt out. I had really bad gut issues. Like that was my life 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And through doing inner work and through
Hmm.
changing my life in certain ways, and also through discovering hypnotherapy, I completely
Hmm.
transformed my life to the point where I didn't even know it was possible. to feel this
mm,
good or to
mm,
feel this happy. For example, like the me 10 years ago wouldn't have even conceived that was like a possibility. And that's where
mm,
it's like, oh, I wish I could transmit that to people. Like, it's worth it. Like, it's really, really worth it to do the healing in whatever way. It doesn't need to be hypnosis. There's different
mm,
ways that people can get this that make them feel better, but to really
mm,
carve out space for your inner
mm.
transformation so that you can really live a life of joy where you can thrive and really create a life that you love.
I'm really glad that you talked about that because I think one of the main things that really gets people attention and also motivates people is hearing stories and positive stories about other people who've healed from similar conditions to what they've got. So I'm really glad that you shared that. Um, just you want to touch on a little bit more around, your own journey because I think that's really cool to share, and as well as any
Definitely.
really amazing stories that you've had through your own work.
Definitely. Yeah. So my journey, I mean, it started with this depression, anxiety. I struggled with addiction in the past
Mm,
and the burnout, and it led me to just feeling like I feel like at some point I just hit rock bottom and I
mm,
felt like I couldn't go any lower. And that was really a turning point for me. And I think the challenges and the darkness that can appear in our life can be the greatest catalyst for change. Rumi has an amazing quote. I don't know if I'm going to quote him properly, but it's something along the lines, the wound is where the light enters you. And so
mm,
I find I had this pivotal moment when I was going through that of just being like, I don't know what happiness is. I had moments, like at that time in my life, I had moments of being happy, but it was characterized by buying something nice or, like usually just like spending money or like
yeah,
going
surface
out.
level
But these
stuff.
were
Yeah. Mm,
yeah, these were
mm,
fleeting moments of happiness, and after I would
mm,
return to
mm,
this state of feeling like a deep sadness and emptiness.
mm, mm,
And it was it wasn't until like I think one of the first books I read was about like the Happiness Project or something around the lines of like the research behind happiness. And what does it even mean? Because that's where I started with. I was like, I see people that are happy. I want to be that way. So I started researching the science of happiness. And then I got into
mm,
spirituality and meditation and mindfulness and things like Joe Dispenza.
mm,
And that led me to the power of the subconscious mind.
mm,
And through doing different things, like it started with meditation. So I was like meditating an hour a day, every single day. And I felt
mm,
better.
mm,
Like I really did feel better. I felt more centered. I felt more grounded. But I felt like I still had so much anxiety when I was
mm,
going, like once I was done meditating, I would go out into the world and I would experience so much anxiety and just feeling really hyper aware, almost like I'm processing a lot of information from my environment and it's too much. That's what I was experiencing in the past.
mm,
And so I learned from Joe Dispenza that hypnotherapy is the most powerful way to reprogram your subconscious mind. If you want to change and break out from being the pattern of you that you're used to being, you want something greater for your life, you need to
mm,
work with the subconscious mind because it's responsible for like 90 to 95% of our daily behavior patterns, emotional states, our physical health as well. So I got curious and I was like, okay,
mm,
I really, really want to try this. And so I booked a session and I didn't even really know what I was going to work on.
mm,
But then I thought about what is it that's causing me issues? Like, what is it that in my life is not working or it feels uncomfortable? And I had this event of like a couple days ago where I went to this birthday party and I felt so stressed and I was so like
mm,
anxious at this thing. And I was like, okay, I want to work on this social anxiety. And
mm,
I did a session and I felt after like so light and
mm,
free, like something in me shifted.
mm,
And I did another session and I feel it cleared even deeper. And the change was so deep and instant to the point I think 80% of my social anxiety just dissolved and never came back.
mm,
That I realized, like, wow, I didn't need to be feeling this way my whole life, but I
mm,
didn't know that I was feeling I knew I was feeling bad, but I didn't know that it was possible to feel this way because I was so
Mm,
used to feeling this way. And
mm,
that click just like changed everything for me because I'm like, if this could happen to me in 2 sessions, then I want to help people. It's been more
mm,
powerful than anything else that I had tried at the time.
mm,
And that's where I went on my journey to learn to be a hypnotherapist and working with digestion because I noticed my digestion improved. I learned about the research behind gut directed
mm,
hypnotherapy and specifically with my gut journey. I guess I didn't really talk about that because it was more that brought me actually
mm,
to the hypnosis, but it did heal my
mm,
gut. I was never formally diagnosed with anything. I had really bad gut symptoms, especially abdominal pain, motility issues.
mm,
I went to the doctor multiple times and they just couldn't find anything. And so I felt really discouraged. Oh my God, I was like crying at home
mm,
because I
mm,
just thought I felt like I was dying. I went through a month of intense abdominal pain to the point when it would come, I couldn't leave the house. Like I'd have to lay down on my bed. And it went on for weeks. And so I was like scared to even leave my house and I felt I was
mm.
dying, which was kind of extreme, but it was so bad. And the doctors were like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. We didn't find anything." And I was like, "Oh my God, they're not going to help me. What do I do?" Like I felt so hopeless and so uncared for. And I don't mean that for like like that was just my
Mm,
personal experience because I know there's
mm,
amazing doctors and people that can support you.
mm,
I think the hospitals, they're just overloaded. They have a very limited amount of time to help you and they're
mm,
just
mm.
they're trying their
Oh,
best to
no,
find
well,
things
we're
quickly.
much more straight up with that. I just don't think it's gonna solve your problem, to be honest. You go there
Yeah,
if you're in an emergency and if you need help, and you're in a really bad way, you go there and you're gonna get some help and you're gonna get some symptom relief. But if you want to
yeah,
solve your problem, you can't find that in the medical system. As you said, there are some really good doctors who practice lifestyle, and those doctors are doing amazing work.
yes,
But
definitely.
your story is not a rare story. We hear it all the time. Went to the doctor, they couldn't
I
figure
can
out what was wrong with
imagine.
me, and just pumped me full of drugs or just sent me on my way, without any answers. And it's pretty common. But the other thing I thought was really interesting that you mentioned was that if you don't know what's wrong, you can't really find out what you want, right? So
Hmm.
if you don't have the bad, like, so I talk to people about this all the time, like when they're going through a tough time, yeah, you're having a tough experience. It's not fun. It's a bad experience. But if you don't know what's bad, then how do you know what's good, right? So there's light and dark, as you mentioned. I thought that was really cool how you kind of explained that.
Definitely. The
Mm,
contrast and the darkness, exactly. It helps us figure out what we don't want,
mm,
what is not working. And I think life gives us the opportunity to catalyze transformation and to change things in our lives in whatever way
mm,
that looks like. Everybody's journey is different and unique, but when we can look at the challenges that come up as an opportunity to learn to do
mm,
something different, like I've had so many people come and be like, having these issues has been really hard, but I can see how it catalyzed me, like getting, like really focusing on my health and
mm,
and stopping those habits that weren't good for me that I was doing for so long, or like how it helped them shift their perception and build self-love again with their body, to start
mm.
loving and caring about themselves on a deeper level. And yeah,
That's a huge topic in and
it's a
of
journey.
itself, self-love.
Hmm.
It's so
Yes,
important to love yourself if you
yes,
want to heal as well. How do you heal if you don't love who you are? It's really tough. Hmm.
definitely. Super
Um,
important.
yeah, just as we wind up the session, I'd love to hear some really cool, just one or two really fascinating success stories that you've had through your work. And secondly, any last tips that you want to give people to really, shift their mental situation or mental state from that fight or flight to more the parasympathetic.
Definitely. I can start with some stories.
Hmm.
One that I really love, it just touches my heart really deeply. I was working with this woman
Hmm.
who was struggling with IBS and very, very painful abdominal pain. Like it was a 7 out of 10 on most days, and she had to
Hmm.
actually stop her work. Like it would
Hmm.
progressively get worse and worse throughout the day. She couldn't work. She was in bed most of her day
Hmm.
and her life was now on pause and
Hmm.
debilitated. And
Hmm.
she had tried the apps. the Nerva app and everything, which are really great, but they're short. They're like little 10-minute segments that you do every day. So they're really good for a little relaxation throughout the day.
Mm,
And it helped her. But so she came to me because she wanted to go deeper
of
and she
course.
wanted to do something like
Mm.
even
You're not going to
more.
get that without personalized coaching. I mean, you can get
Yeah,
benefits from smaller benefits from that, but if you've got a more severe condition, you need to go deeper into your healing.
exactly. Yeah, you need support on that. And
Mm,
so we work together. And throughout the course of working together, she was able to bring that pain down. It went down to like, it would go up to maybe a 2 out of 10
mm,
throughout the day. So it was going from a 7 out of 10 on most days down to about it could go up to a 2 out of 10. She was able
mm.
to start working again. She moved to a
Nice.
new country. Like she was
Wow.
just able to get her life back. And I
Mm,
was so grateful and like happy for her to have that transition
mm,
because it really can put our life on hold.
mm,
And so we were working on the part of her that had that pain and kind of figuring out on a deeper subconscious level
mm,
why, what's its goal? Why is it there? What is it trying to communicate that's not quite being understood? And
mm,
that was really, really helpful in her healing the physical pain aspect.
mm,
And another client that I had, I'm thinking like a couple stories. Um, I've had clients that have struggled with like constipation
mm.
for most of their life and go from 1 or 2 bowel movements a week. In a couple
Oh,
weeks working together, they're having regular bowel movements every single day, or the opposite. Just it
mm,
helps to bring the motility back into
hmm,
order. So there's all kinds of different ways in which it can support. And the
mm,
symptom that you're experiencing is like a way in which things have kind of got out of balance. So whether it's diarrhea or
mm,
constipation, it's like
hmm,
once you get things back in their
mm,
natural state, back
mm.
into rest and digest, then it's like the body just will bring it back to the way
Right.
that it
Yeah.
was. And I have clients that have had really bad fears, like for example, fear of using the bathroom in public or fear of leaving the house in case there's not a bathroom nearby.
Mm,
That's a really, really
mm,
big one. So I work with people to help to resolve those fears and to help give them the confidence that they need to be able to get their life back. Like
mm.
they're stopped going hiking or don't want to get on a highway in their car because they don't know if there's going to be a traffic jam. Then we
Yeah.
can really work on the fear that's manifesting in the body and help diminish the symptoms so you get more confidence when you leave the house.
Really, that's a huge thing. The toilet fear is
Toilet fear, yes.
very, very, very common. Wonderful. Uh, and lastly, some tips that people can just some really basic stuff that people can do straight away that can help move out of that fight or flight mode.
Yeah. The easiest, quickest, simplest thing that anybody can do to help shift from the fight or flight mode into rest and digest is deep belly breathing or
Mm,
following some kind of breathwork pattern.
mm,
Breath is directly connected with the nervous system, and
mm-hmm,
it's a tool you can use anywhere. You don't need to even listen to something. Once you kind of learn a pattern of breathing,
mm, mm-hmm,
like the 4-7-8 breathing, or even just deep diaphragmatic breathing helps to
mm-hmm,
loosen the tension in the diaphragm.
mm-hmm,
These can put you into rest and digest in minutes sometimes. Like
mm-hmm,
that's how quick and easy it is. So
mm,
I would say that's the easiest. It's often kind of like underlooked at, but it's one of the most powerful tools ever. And another thing people can do, I have a free healing affirmations that's on my website,
mm-hmm,
gut-directedhypnotherapy.com, that people can listen to. It's 20
mm-hmm.
minutes and will help to calm
The
your
link will
gut.
be down there.
The link will be, yes, it helps to calm, soothe the nervous system. It helps with your mindset as well,
Mhm.
and will help put you in this rest and digest state as well. So it's a really, really great tool.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think those are great tips. Yeah, breathing is super important. Yeah,
Breathing. Yeah. And
I
there's
think
like, yeah,
getting into nature can help too. I think, just being in nature and
yes,
slowing down and getting out of your head in a way all those things can really
definitely.
help. Yeah, breathing is so important. I think if you're struggling with, being in that state of fight or flight, check out Linda's free, offering there and see if it helps.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Um,
find there's some things that help as well.
mhm,
It's finding what really works for you that brings you that calm. For different people, it's different. For some people, it's exercise. For
mm,
some people, it's yoga or deep
mm,
stretching. Some people, it's meditation, or
mm.
I honestly, I find cooking really relaxing and it
Okay,
puts me in a
yeah.
really good state because I love to cook. So it's
I'm the
finding that
opposite.
thing that you
It
enjoy.
puts me
Oh,
into
really?
fight or
Yeah, some
flight
people it
now.
can be stressful. That's how it's so unique,
Mm.
right? You've got to
Mm.
find the thing for you that really
No, I do
puts
enjoy
you,
it
yeah, just
sometimes, though. I
restful.
do enjoy it sometimes, and as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
No, amazing. Yeah, find what you like. I think the main message from that is find what you love doing and do it more often. You'll find yourself in a more positive state in general, I'd say.
Definitely. I have a formula. It's very
Mm.
simple.
Okay, tell.
Decrease your stress and
Mm-hmm.
increase your positive emotions. If you just do
Mm.
activities that will decrease your stress and increase your positive
Mm.
emotions,
Mm.
that's already going to help at the simplest level.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Well, thank you so much. Such valuable information. Yeah, I'm really glad we got you on because it's something that's been on my radar to look into a bit deeper for a couple of years now since I first found out about it, and I really wanted to find out more. So I think it's definitely a
Mhm.
area where there's huge gains to be found for people's health, and we're all for working on the mind as a critical tool in your healing journey. So for everyone who's watching and listening to this, if you're neglecting the mental aspect of your healing, then you better get onto it because it's so important. And if you don't take or don't put attention on it, it's going to make it much harder for you to heal. And it's something that we have been talking to our clients about for a long time. Linda's obviously working very well with a lot of people to improve their situation. So it's something that is being noticed more and more as we find out more information about it. So I'm really stoked you're doing what you're doing and helping lots of people
Thank
all over the
you.
world. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day,
It
getting
is.
people to improve their health, and that's why we do what we do.
Yes, and just knowing healing is possible, to never
Mm-hmm.
lose hope that you're going to find that one thing that's really going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I also want to mention that I have my signature. If anybody is interested in really diving deep into repairing the brain gut connection
Mm-hmm.
and working with this mind body aspect, I have a signature 8 week, it's standard gut directed hypnotherapy program.
Mm-hmm.
It has so many amazing tools, amazing recordings,
Mm.
educational. Every week you get a new interactive lesson, and it's very comprehensive. It's helped many people along their healing journey. So that's also available if anybody's interested in the gut hypnosis, in the mind-body connection, and also working one-on-one with me. That's another way that I work with people.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that, I'm sure people will get benefit from it for sure, definitely. Well, yeah, I really wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing. It was really
Thank you
valuable
for having me.
information. Yeah, really valuable information. I think people need to be aware of this, much more aware of this than we are in general. I think generally when people think about their gut, they only focus on their diet. And obviously diet is important, but you have to look at other lifestyle factors as well because there's more to it than just what you eat. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so for everyone who's been watching and on YouTube and listening on the podcast, we thank you very much for joining us today and being here to and listen and learn some new information about how your mind can affect your gut health. If you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up because it helps us reach more people. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and click the little bell notification icon so that you get updated on all our recent uploads. And there's a comment section down there below. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you're watching or listening on Spotify, please share this with as many people as you can and subscribe to our podcast, IBD Heal. We really appreciate that. And otherwise, I would just like to thank you, Linda, for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure diving deep into hypnosis, the brain gut connection, and the power of the mind. So I really appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely. It's a real pleasure. And for everyone watching and listening, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you eat plants and lots of them. Take care.
Yes.